I am Bea Gwyneth Descallar, your presenter for today, and our research topic is about sustaining food security and health through indigenous knowledge, which is a study on traditional plant-based practices in Rizal's Zamboanga del Norte. So this study documents and revitalizes indigenous knowledge systems and practices to prevent the decline amid modernization. So it examines the role of sociocultural plants in food security, healthcare, and climate resilience in Rizal's Zamboanga del Norte, and also analyzing impact or the climate change impacts while also analyzing transmission of knowledge. And this study identifies traditional plants, explore adaptation strategies, and proposes ways to preserve indigenous knowledge. And findings will support sustainability goals SDGs 2, 3, 13, and 15, and benefit local communities, policymakers, researchers, and environmentalists. So for the objective, it explores traditional plant-based food and medicine practices in Rizal, Zamboanga del Norte, and the response to climate change. For the theoretical framework, so this study is grounded in three key frameworks, which is the traditional ecological knowledge framework, which highlights indigenous communities' deep understanding of biodiversity, sustainable agriculture, and climate adaptation, while cultural transmission theory explains how indigenous plant knowledge is passed through oral tradition, mentorship, and experiential learning. Also, lastly, the climate change adaptation framework emphasizes how traditional ecological practices enhance environmental resilience. So for our objectives, the general objectives here basically means to explore traditional plant-based food and medicine practices in Rizal, Zamboanga del Norte, and the response to climate change. So for the specific objectives, we have identify useful plants, document traditional practices, assess climate change impacts, to explore community adaptations, and also recommend support strategies for social workers. And for the methodology, we have the first in the table, the demographics, which identified our responder as a 7 to 9-year-old female farmer and caregiver in Rizal, Zamboanga del Norte, living for 43 years in the area. For the food plants she uses bananas, papaya, moringa, and more, and prepares it as laoy or a soup. Medicinal plants she used gabon, which is for bloating, handalibang for toothache, oregano for cough, and it is prepared by pounding and mixing with lemon or honey. For the fourth row, it explains that extreme heat reduces crop survival and threatens food security. For fifth one is about cultural practices, which is about medicinal plants harvested with rituals, knowledge passed through generations. 6. Adaptations. Elders mentor the youth to preserve plant knowledge. So for this discussion and analysis, we have traditional knowledge and sustainability. So it says here that elders preserve plant-based knowledge linking cultural rituals to ecological balance, but reliance on them risks knowledge loss. Also, traditional cooking and medicine. Local plants serve as food and remedies, but climate change and modernization threaten availability. Also, climate change impact, rising temperatures, and erratic weather reduces crop yields and medicinal plant supply, requiring adaptation. Also, for the fourth one, we have cultural heritage and rituals. So rituals maintain plant efficacy and identity, but climate change and declining youth participation endangering traditions. Also, for the last one, elders mentor youth in plant gathering, but modern influences demand proactive preservation efforts. Okay, for the major findings, first we have elders preserve knowledge of native plants essential for food, medicine, and sustainable practices. While for the second one, we have traditional methods using local plants, like what you mentioned, banana, papaya, moringa, ginger, which support nutrition, health, and cultural preservation. For the third one, rising temperatures and erratic weather reduce crop yields, make medicinal plants scarce, and disrupt farming. So for the fourth one, we have indigenous rituals maintain plant efficacy and cultural identity, but climate change and youth disengagement threaten continuity. So for the fifth one, we have elders pass down plant-based knowledge through cultural rituals, but modern influences challenge its preservation. Conclusion. So indigenous knowledge supports food security and healthcare, but is declining due to climate change and modernization. The study urges preservation through policy, education, and community efforts. So for suggestions based on findings, we have strengthen intergenerational knowledge transmission, promote community collaboration, document and digitize traditional knowledge, integrate indigenous practices into modern systems, address climate change impacts, enhance cultural sustainability, and also for our practical applications or policy implications, we have policy recognition of indigenous knowledge, community-led conservation programs, healthcare integration, educational reforms, climate adaptation funding, legal protections for indigenous lands, and also for future research directions, we have comparative studies on indigenous knowledge, scientific validation of traditional medicine, intergenerational knowledge transmission, gender roles and knowledge preservation, impact of modernization on indigenous practices, climate resilient agricultural practices, and cultural rituals and ecological stewardship. So that's all.